So we were talking about sensory issues when we had technical difficulties there.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, it definitely applies to mostly food and smell at this point. And they tend to be, I guess, kind of correlated.
Yeah, definitely.
But my roommates, like I said, have suggested I eat like 15 different foods. I've counted like 25 or 30, but I have like a few key staples, and if I try anything beyond that, I'll occasionally like it, and I'll try it if I think I'm going to like it.
Right.
But there's so much stuff I don't like that just doesn't taste right. Like, I taste them and think to myself, oh, well, what is this? And then I just don't eat it anymore. So there's that, and then occasionally, like, a really bad smell in an enclosed space. That kind of is tricky as well.
So those are the two
like the time we brought back Pizza Hut in the car.
Yes. Okay, so talk about pizza for a second. How do you eat your pizza?
Okay, so I eat my pizza notoriously in my apartment with no sauce, because the texture of the sauce combined with the rest of the pizza just doesn't really taste right to me. Like, I feel it get on my tongue, and I'm just like, no, this is not right. This does not feel good.
Right.
So, and then when somebody, like, has a lot of pizza with sauce, I'll occasionally put up with it, especially if, like, we're in a larger room. But if we're stuck in, like, a car and the smell is just in the car, I cannot take it. So I have to, like, roll down a window or something to let the smell out.
It's that overpowering to you. Okay, and then when you eat things like hamburgers or hot dogs or whatever, I've observed that you tend to be a purist.
Yes, I am. So I don't eat a whole lot of, lettuce, cheese, tomato, onion, secret sauce, or whatever else you want to put on
and
it.
By not a whole lot, you mean zero.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I might eat them in some cases, but I'll eat them separately.
The tomato you'll definitely...
Tomato I'll eat separately.
Yeah, it's a fruit, so you've never met a fruit you didn't like, I think.
Depends. But, well, avocado's technically a fruit.
Yeah.
I think it is, anyway. But, yeah, so I'll eat, like, just the bun and the burger on a hamburger. I'll cut up, just the meat of a hot dog, and I'll just eat that without even a bun. Without even a bun.
Yeah.
Because I'll do basically whatever tastes best for me.
Yeah.
And for me, that combination just doesn't taste right.
Right. And so that rules out any casseroles or anything really that's a mixture or blend of flavors, pretty much. So you stick to your meat. You love a good steak.
I love a good steak, absolutely.
Yeah, meat and fruits and...
But even with steak, like, they'll occasionally put, like, garlic butter on it when we go to a restaurant. The first thing I do is I take my knife, I scrape off the garlic butter and just move it to the side.
Yeah, just like it plain as it can go. So for sensory issues then, today, you would say that it's taste and smell are the ones that...
Yeah, in the past it used to be more noise, but today it's just taste and smell.
And also, well, I don't know if you remember, you were very, very young, but you had and I don't know if this was a sensory or it was like a obsession, kind of having to have the same thing over and over, repetition thing, but you would insist on the same shoes, and we would go to Stride, and if they didn't have, because your feet, unfortunately, kept growing, and so we would try to go get the same shoe in a bigger size.
Okay.
And it was tough, because if they didn't have that exact same shoe, and I didn't know, I thought maybe part of it was a sensory piece, because maybe they were super comfortable or something like that. But then part of it was just that was what your shoe looked like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's, I guess, my style. It provides me, like, with a sense of continuity in my life.
Yeah.
And I guess if we really want to get philosophical about it, or psychological rather, we kind of like bounced around quite a bit when I was a kid, just like, from Smyrna to Kennesaw to Alpharetta to Columbia to Stevensville, and I guess having a pretty consistent, like, style of shoe gave me that sense of consistency I was otherwise lacking. But even so, like, when I like something, I'll generally stick with it. Like, even with my Crocs. Yes, I was going to say, speaking of style, let's talk about your current footwear. Well, no, let's talk about my past footwear first. Okay. Because for years, I had Crocs, but I had the same blue Croc with the white and red strap. Right. Yeah. Whereas now, you ask me about, what Crocs I want. I'm just like, you know what? Give me the ugliest fucking pair of footwear you can possibly get me.
Do you have them next to you? Are they up here?
They're in the Florida room.
Ah, too bad. They're tie-dye Crocs. So.
Yeah, they're tie-dye.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of compliments and occasionally people laughing, so.
Yes.
And I'm good with that, honestly. It's my style, it's my brand, it's my thing. I get really colorful in my clothing.
Yeah, you do. You do. Alright, so sensory issues. We talked about that. I'm trying to think. You said when you were younger, sound was one. Sight. Were there anything that visually overwhelming to you that you can think of?
Not really, no.
I can't think of anything. Alright. Were you lonely growing up? Did you notice you were different than other kids?
Well, I was kind of lonely growing up, and part of that, I think, is, again, the lack of consistency. Like, I never had the chance to really make stable friends. Like, I had, temporary people, remember Rick and Alpharetta, Katie from Columbia, but until I got to college, I didn't really have, it seemed like, any people I could consistently hang out with who actually, liked me. So, once I got to college, I ultimately did, find those guys, and they're still my roommates, and now I'm going to leave them in a month, and that's going to be a tearjerker.
That would be hard.
But now I know I'm at least capable of, I guess, finding those people. And then what's the other question there?
Oh, real quick, I was just going to say that people told me when I would lament as your mom, I would be like, oh, I hope he can find friends that, people that get him that he can relate to. And people kept telling me that you would find your tribe when you got to high school. They said, high school is that time where there's so many different personalities and there's so many
fuck high school.
There's so many different, little cliques and groups. He's going to find his
tribe.
High
school sucked.
And I'm like, that did not happen in this case. But it did for your brother. So I can understand that it might for some people and might not for others. Ultimately, though, as long as you did find your tribe.
Yeah, it just took me until college.
All right.
What was the other question?
Oh, did you notice you were different than other kids?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to, not notice me. Part of it was me, I guess, willingly setting myself apart. Like, I was one of the only people in class who willingly, spoke out, volunteered answers, because I didn't have a fear of, being wrong. I didn't have a fear of being corrected. So I was frequently, the teacher's pet, or always, volunteering answers just because I knew I was capable of doing it.
Right.
Whereas the rest of the class is no, I don't really feel like talking, it's okay. And then, I guess the other thing is, everybody has, a stronger social life than at least I did back in the day. And, I would occasionally, eat by myself at lunch. Sometimes people would come up and, ask if they could eat with me. I always considered it to be more of a sympathy thing, though.
Okay.
This kid looks lonely, I'm gonna join him to make, I guess, myself feel like I'm doing something nice.
Well, it is true that when you do something nice for somebody else, it does make you feel good. That's part of the nice thing about doing something nice for somebody else.
Yeah, that's a different philosophical discussion. I basically argue that there are very few nice things you can do that you don't do for at least partly because you're selfish.
Well, and that's kind of what we're kind of saying the same thing.
You're doing it because it makes you feel better.
Yeah, you're doing it to help the person, but it also makes you feel better, so it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, yeah. Did you have pets growing up? And I happen to know the answer is yes, so I'm going to ask the second part.
Cool.
Was it helpful to grow up having pets? And would you recommend pets for others on the spectrum, and why?
Whew. Okay, well, it looks like I'm kind of going to get dark again. But it did definitely help from time to time. So, my first pets were okay. Mishu the cat, Scooby the dog. They were okay. They didn't really stand out, though. I didn't really have problems at that point. High school was horrible. I had, genuinely thought of ending it all at least a couple of times.
I remember. It was...
And one of the main reasons that I didn't do it was because my dog at the time, and still my current dog, Mikey, wouldn't have me in his life anymore, and I didn't want to do that to him. And so, it was because he was there and because I knew he had that connection with me when it seemed like no one at my high school did, that I felt, okay, well, if I, go away, he's not going to know what happened. He's, never going to have me again. Mm-hmm. And I decided, no, I can't, I can't leave Mikey like that.
Did you ever think of what your mother would feel like if you ever left her like that?
I really didn't, because, you, Evan, Pop, I knew you did, love me, but I kind of had the sense that it was because you had to.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
This is a revelation for me. I never knew that you felt that way.
I mean, I don't know how else to, describe it. But back in the day, I was like, well, yeah, you're my parents. You're supposed to love me. But, somebody like Mikey, the dog, is just unconditional. He doesn't know he has to love anyone. He just does.
Right. Pure, unconditional, genuine love.
Exactly. And I think that was kind of what I needed.
Yeah. Because as much as I unconditionally love you, I was dealing with my own stress.
Yeah.
And it's hard to... That's a hard balance. Yeah. So just real quick, and this is not a question on the thing, but it just brings to mind when you say you thought about ending it all. Did you talk to therapists? Did you go and try to get some help? What was going on?
You mean right when I was considering, doing it?
Or along the way when you were feeling down, or...
Yeah, I've talked to therapists, and, they have helped occasionally. I'm in a much better place now, though. And I will say, the most helpful you could be, or the most helpful thing for me, especially when I was feeling low, and I guess the most hurtful thing, too, was myself. I thought, okay, well, I have, this to stick around for, if I was the one who basically considered, if I die, A, I'm never coming back, but B, I don't know what happens after I die, so if I'm just nothing, I don't want to be that. Mm-hmm. So it was, that logic that sort of helped get me through it as well.
Okay.
The therapist did help. The medication ultimately helped, keep me cool, not all that anxious, up until, last year when I just... I realized I didn't really need to do that anymore because my life is otherwise pretty strong right now. Mm-hmm. But I was a pretty, key component in that as well.
Okay. So you helped yourself.
Yeah.
Help pull yourself out of that. I just recall the reason I asked a question about therapists is because one realization I had as the mom along the way is unless you're willing to talk, there's nothing they can do to help.
Exactly.
And so I know we went to at least 4 different therapists over the years, and one of them taught you how to play a mean game of chess. That's when you were probably 8. You learned how to play chess, and you became a really strong chess player because he was a play therapist, and that was what you gravitated toward, and so y'all chatted over chess, but I think mostly it was chess. Mm-hmm. And then we tried again a couple of years later, and you didn't have any interest in talking.
I didn't get the point of therapy. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't know, appreciate that the only way they could help me is if I opened up to them.
Yeah.
So once we had Dr. Greenberger, or the doctors Greenberger, much more recently, I realized, well, the only way they can help me is if I actually answer their questions truthfully and insightfully.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'm glad we got through those. There were some scary times, for sure.